Welcome, everyone. I am one of the hosts of Helping the Brave, and I have a great guest for you today. And he is a U.S. Army veteran. So I'm going to bring Thomas in. Welcome, welcome.
Hello, hello.
And so, Thomas, we always, I had shared, we always start off with why you chose the branch that you chose.
Sure. So I'm a proud U.S. Army infantry veteran. I chose the U.S. Army because I wasn't as smart as the Air Force. No, I literally had a girlfriend whose mom was dating a former infantryman who was a recruiter. And one night over popcorn, we were just kind of flipping each other crap. He was sitting with mom, and I was sitting with daughter. And he said, you should join the Army infantry. And it kind of became like a semi bet, and I decided to sign up. I really didn't have any future plans after high school and all of my friends. I had a GED that I was working on at the time, so I just decided, you know what, after I get this, I'm gonna go into the Army. So I decided to go in the Army basically off of a joke, sitting on the couch with my girlfriend's mom.
That's fabulous. So, as as you entered into your Army career, did you ever think that, geez, I don't like that joke? Or
Oh yeah,
how did it go for you?
instantly. So he was not a good friend after, I was in basic training in AIT. He didn't date my girlfriend's mother for very much longer, and I also my girlfriend not very much longer after that quote joke. But I was 6 years into the Army at that point and no way out. Fort Benning, Georgia, for basic and AIT. Still wonderfully happy that I served, but looking back, he did the recruiter thing and recruited me. So.
Interesting. Okay. So what'd you do in the Army?
So I was an infantryman. For those that don't know, it's basically like a SWAT team member. We prepare raids, plan missions, basically figure out where the bad guys are holding weapons and go get them, interrogate them, or pass them on to other agencies to interrogate them so we can keep conducting those missions.
Okay. So when you transitioned out of the military, did they have, well, what year was that? And then did they have like the programs that they have today?
So they did, from what I know from active duty. So I guess I should preface this by I was a Washington State National Guard member that was activated for a year and a half of active duty service, which a lot of people have, things to be said about the nasty girl or the National Guard, as they call it. It's the part-time Army, but I was activated the first time since World War II. They missed Korea, they missed Vietnam, and got Iraq. And when we ramped up and mobilized, there was great support-ish. We didn't have armor for our vehicles. We didn't have plates for our vests. We had very low ammunition loads. We were basically rolling from Kuwait to Iraq in soft cloth Humvees, not knowing what IEDs were, VB IEDs at the time. And when I transitioned out, none of those transitional service programs like TAP, any of that was around. I basically came home, basically turning your TA-50 in supply, got your hand receipt, and went home the next day. And I remember being a 21-year-old guy just before my 21st birthday. I just completed PLDC or E5 school, and was sitting on my couch looking at about a month after I'd gotten back, about delivering pizzas for Papa John's, because I really had no real skills besides my GED and kicking indoors, and was just kind of really lost in life. Had a lot of mental health issues that just weren't addressed from the VA, and subsequently ended up getting lost in the VA backlog when I did finally file about a month before I got out.
Wow. So, so take us along to where you are now, or what are you doing now in backfill?
Yeah, so my life has had some really wild turns since getting out of the military. A lot of undiagnosed PTSD until I was actually able to get into the VA to be seen and treated. And while I was being treated in 2012 or so, 2013, I had walked in on my wife having an affair with her supervisor. I made a really rash, stupid, impulsive decision that changed my life forever. I was incarcerated subsequently and did 13 months incarcerated on an 18-month sentence with good time. And I really had some choices to be made as I really stared at myself in that mirror in that concrete box. I came home this hero, very prideful, um, a responsible citizen, I felt. And here I was years later after trying, struggling to go through community college, delivering pizzas on the side, basically just trying to survive and battle my wounds that I brought home from war. And when I had gotten out of prison in 2015, I released into this whole new life that I was just destined to set out upon. Um, Kind of put it in preference. It's not like I didn't fall too far. I was 23, bought my very first house, and by 30, I was incarcerated and could not put my name on a housing application. Um, so when I was released in 2015, when I was in prison, I was just helping people fill out FAFSA forms and educational plans, trying to get them into college because of my time from 2005 to 2008. Before all this happened, I went to technical college. And as I was releasing, I was just dead set on going back to school. I had my associate's degree in automotive repair and hybrid technology, 1 year professional collision certification for automotive repair. And I came back into Tacoma Community College thinking, I'm going to go for mechanical engineering. And I just couldn't hack the math. I remember crying the very first quarter out of prison to my teacher, who was going to give me like a D plus. And I was like, look, if I don't pass this class, like, I don't know if I'm going to get financial aid again. I don't know if the Veterans Administration is going to pay for it again. I was just in a really bad place. Not to mention I was living in my two-door Cadillac Eldorado at the time, just trying to survive. So from there, I just kind of started in higher education and let the rest kind of take me where it may. Tacoma Community College is a wonderful institution. I found a lot of happiness there. I basically lived inside of the quote Veteran Center, which is pretty much just like a mop closet outside of Tacoma Community College, which we made into this just wonderful, basically like orderly room in the military. You come in there, you would be able to talk with people or connect with people, and I found that was just so awesome. And as I struggled throughout my life in 2015 and 2016, I had kept thinking about people that were still incarcerated and what they could do and the people that I had met. And one of those people was a guy named Joseph Delgado. I don't know where he is. If you're watching this, though, Joseph, you've changed my life forever. It was a pleasure to meet you and talk with you because you inspired and changed my life. But anyways, I was about a week from the gate, and he was about 2 months from the gate. And he said, I just don't know what I'm going to do when I get out. You have this plan. You're helping everyone, go to school when they get out. They got this future ahead, and you have this future ahead of yourself. And I said, well, why not the same for you? And he says, well, I don't have any family. I don't have any support. And, I'd gone down for selling cocaine and having a weapon. And that's pretty much what I'm going to go back to when I get out of prison, because I don't have any other skills. I don't have any, transition support. There's nothing for me when I get on the outside of this gate. And so when I was at TCC, I heard this a lot from minorities of color, not just veterans, just military connected students. And I said, man, there's got to be something that I can do to help people out who are in a similar spot as mine, who may have gone through similar circumstances. It doesn't have to be prison. It could be the flip side of the coin. It could be the domestic violence person, like my ex-wife. It could be a child who had ran away from their family and just not understood where to go or the resources that are available or support that's available. So I started a veterans organization called Student Veterans of Tacoma Community College, or SVOTCC. And within a year, I transformed Tacoma Community College with the people that were showing up. We started having board meetings. We started getting donations from local VFW and DAV members. We got chaptered under a national program called Student Veterans of America. which was the college's first student veteran organization. I started connecting just more and more with people at the university, where I met even greater advocates. Uh, and in 2018, I was able to graduate TCC, go over to UW-Tacoma as one of the first elected by my peers veteran presidents of that organization. And for the next 3 years, just continued to climb with the successful veterans that were there on the board, taking us to compete against universities like Brown, Yale, Harvard, and we're just, UW-Tacoma, this redheaded stepchild of the University of Washington. So my experience and love has been deeply steeped in higher education. The mission continues, veteran nonprofits, Travis Manion Foundation, all these types of veteran organizations kind of was the glue or the binder that kept my time occupied when I wasn't in school and I wasn't thinking about my situation. So that's kind of how I've gotten to where I am now, which now I'm a senior human resources consultant for the state of Washington's Employment Security Department. And I really try to focus in on our military connected families and formerly incarcerated in obtaining state employment.
Well, that's super exciting. Thank you for sharing that. I will say my daughter is going to University of Washington Tacoma, and she's doing urban studies, and I believe loves it. It's a little different. She
Wonderful.
started off at Bowling Green University in Ohio, and academically did very well. However, she was studying forensics to begin with, and she learned she hates chemistry.
Ouch.
And kind of probably had that same pivot moment that you did. She said she used every student aid available to her. And the teacher was like, "You've obviously put a lot of effort into this. It might not be the field for you."
Exactly.
Which I think sometimes it's such a crisis when you're in the moment. But it's okay to pivot. But I think, especially when you're young, it's hard to see pivoting as an option. And I think
One,
that can be the truth with veterans as well.
veterans in particular, there's a statistic that kind of rolls around the SVA that student veterans will change their degree 2 to 3 times before they graduate. So to kind of put that in perspective of a traditional student, most 18, 19-year-olds, I don't know how, but they already know what they want to do for the rest of their lives. I remember being 18, I couldn't even decide what I needed at McDonald's drive-thru for food when I was hungry, but these kids have their whole lives mapped out. Veterans are just one of those that, like myself, I dabbled in automotive with a technical degree, did great in industry for almost a decade, and thought, oh yeah, the next step is automotive engineering. You got to be really smart at math, and if you're not, just pick a whole new degree because it's not for you. So
That's funny. Well, that is. I'm really glad that you landed so well. So, what has been maybe your greatest where you've helped to someone? I always think that sometimes our legacy is what others do because of our influence, right?
I don't know. It's so hard when someone says that. Like, what's your biggest help, right? I would, and just to refine, is biggest help to me or my helping to someone else?
Either.
So the biggest help for me was just finding that community that I thought was gone after the military. You and I have recently connected at MVP, merging veterans with players. Something where I have really stepped out of my physical health since I've gotten out of the Army, disabled, all the negative thoughts and narratives that you can have in your mind, kind of start there. And I'd say the biggest helper was having that peer support, right? Having the accountability factor, I'm not standing information, saluting people as they come by or having them check my uniform or polish on my boot is okay. But at the same time, it's like, have I been accountable to not being an alcoholic? Have I been an accountable parent, an accountable friend, an accountable professional? And I think that really held me in when I'm sitting in a car. Marijuana is legal in the state. Alcohol is legal in the state. There's so many crutches that a veteran can lean on and self-medicate. And I think having those peer support systems where I could call up a friend or talk on Facebook. Facebook's been another big help, right? The just ultimate connector. You can whine, bitch, and complain to anyone at 2 a.m. through Facebook Messenger, and I know that my support system's there. And I think having that always on tone may be bad for like a professional rapport with your job. But I think every veteran can identify that they're always on for other veterans. Like if I know a veteran is in crisis, they know they can call me or I can call them. Like there is that connectability. And I don't think if I wouldn't have had those peer support groups, and I just named, just a few that are just now starting to get traction here in the Pacific Northwest that have been around for a long time providing that peer support to people, I don't think I could have done what I did without the peer support system. And whether that the peer support system that I put in place at SVOTCC that others kind of help build the framework and the fence around, or if that was the mission continues and hey, here's a whole leadership program and institute that we're going to send you to and get you right. So I'd say peer support.
Very good. I think, we had talked before going live where I said, I think I feel, and I will say it could be confirmation bias, but that we are in a building phase. Like we are building community, at least out here in the Pacific Northwest, where I do feel like we have to build it correctly this time. Like we being inclusive, like you can have many different belief systems and still one vision. And so if you're doing a project and whatever nonprofit is the lead, let that be the vision, and like we had talked about, it's important to volunteer for other organizations than your own. Like if you're a really big volunteer with one organization, or like me, a staff member with an organization, I look for opportunities to impact in other ways because, I need help, but I need it, but to, real character it's always reciprocal,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and therefore I want to do for others what I need others to do for me sometimes.
Well, and people have this stereotypical image in their head, right? I state all the time at the state as recruiting is people think that we're this old, stuffy, white head organization, right? They have no idea of the innovation and the wonderful impacts and changes that we make at the state on a daily basis. And to your point, like this Pacific Northwest vets kind of coalition that is starting to be seen now at a more state and even national level. These people have been around like you and I for almost a decade, right? We've just been hidden with inside of other organizations or had other life things going on. And I think the traction now that we're seeing within the Pacific Northwest, especially, has been because of very specific individuals and communities of individuals who are really wanting to turn the focus on themselves. Because when we're out volunteering at the Tacoma Rescue Mission, we could see 1 in 4 of these homeless people are veterans, right? When we're in the community colleges or universities, we see that there's 1 in 5 of every student is a veteran or a military connected individual using uh, military benefits for education. And when we really start like making different narratives and giving back in different communities, then we start breaking down other narratives across other communities, and that's where we start to get that traction. So, when I started volunteering with the Mission Continues, I was like, I don't want to go out and pull blackberry bushes and spread bark. Like, how boring is that? But if you bring your kids out there, now every single time that I drive past McKinley Park in Tacoma next to the Tacoma Dome, which used to be a wonderful park back in the day, it still is a wonderful park. Don't Top community, shout out to you, Don't Top neighbors. But it's one of those conversation pieces where my kids, right, if they're in the car with a friend, they're like, oh yeah, I worked on that park. And it brings that sense of community pride and regional pride when they're doing it, like the Danny Wu Gardens in Seattle. Oh, I saw the Blitz Seahawks mascot there. Like it creates these memories. And I know, at least for me, I want people when they drive past on the highway or they're walking by and they see a military connected organization, I want them to think, man, they're out there doing great, impactful work for our community. Because there was a huge purpose and a huge moment in time, especially in the 90s, I would say, maybe early 2000s as well, where there was a huge community push and community drive. Like I remember DARE officers out there planting gardens and trees with kids in school. And I wish we had more of that community impact. And I think veterans serving in the capacities in which we serve helps to really navigate and break down a lot of those old and stuffy community service organizations that we see. So I'm glad that we're all starting to get traction now.
Well, I agree with that. I also think it's neat to see partnerships. The Travis Manion Foundation's doing a joint program with TMC and a local high school, and it's fun to see how things work together. But I was going to say, do you think there is any universal truths when working with nonprofits that you think, that is a universal truth?
I think the universal truth for every nonprofit is there's more money, right? Everyone needs more money. Philanthropy in general and donations in general to nonprofits is probably at a 20-year low. It's a hard time to be a nonprofit and to gather a lot of resources and to do more with nothing. Nonprofits are one of those very niche markets inside of the community, with inside where businesses operate, right? Like you are literally selling your time now for free to potentially get an investment of time or money or commitment at a later time, which is very fundamentally different when you look at business, right? You get a good, you pay for it right then and there, and the person gets that money. There's no other extra effort needed. Nonprofits, there is always extra, things that are needed. Even when you get a donation, you're going to make sure you send a thank you card back. It's just proper business. Like, hey, thanks so much for your donation. So I would just say, giving to the nonprofits, making sure that our nonprofits, we have a lot of newer ones, I should say, in the Pacific Northwest that I think are still too infant, too new to really capitalize on the growth that they're getting. But obviously funds would help them amplify a lot of the things that they do.
Do you think, is there anything that you learned from from your time in the Army that helps you even today?
Yeah, I'd say just the Army infantry way, right? Like any infantryman can attest. Like there's a hurry up and wait, and that hurry up part was meaning you were already there. So having that mindset of just go until there's like a wall in front of you and you're just leaning against it, waiting to push out of it, whether that be an airplane or the wall of life. I would just say the motivation, right? The dedication in your mind to just pick it up and to look at whatever it may be in a positive light and get it done. I think too many people look at life and get overwhelmed, and instead of chopping it up into small blocks of accomplishable tasks, instead of taking that first step, they won't take any steps. And I think just getting up and being present, right? Standing in formation, that's step one. Making your bed, that's step one of every single day. And just having that motivation to just keep going and to be ever present in your day. I think the military really pounded that into me.
Very good. Is there anything that you're like, once you walked away from the military, you're like, never again? And this is where my co-host would say the 24-hour clock.
Yeah, I don't know. I was excited to join the military based on the promises. But once I got in, for me, it was just the politics. There's a lot of positioning that goes on. And I don't think for the lower enlisted, a lot of that positioning really happens unless you've been in for a while, right? You're going for E5, E6, E7, E8. There's a little more positioning that goes on than for the lower junior enlisted. I always tell myself, like, if I was to tell someone would I recommend them going into the Army, absolutely, I'd recommend anyone going into the Army. But if I had to take my own advice and look back and go, would you do it again? Probably not. As a 70% disabled veteran at the time I was 21, life has been challenging. and to not have those functional supports that exist now with inside of the futurized military, the new Army as we call it, I think I would have had a different outlook. But
So, would you have not picked the Army or service at all? Like, do you think?
I don't think I would have picked the infantry. Um,
Okay.
Infantry is a very physically demanding job. It's also a very mentally, you gotta have some good mental capacity being an infantryman. Only 10% of the military is infantry. So there's that really slim margin of people where you gotta kind of get it together. There's no time to screw around or for extra training. Like you either got it or you don't. And a lot of the times it can be very direct and very forceful, right? Because you don't have that time. It's not like other MOSs where we can train you, like your life's at risk. I don't think I would have chose the infantry. I think I would have been smarter uh, if I would have scored smarter and gone into things like, nowadays there's the Air Force, there's a Space Force. The Navy wasn't very appealing to me at the time, but I think now, after what I've been through, the Navy would have been very appealing to me. Um, so yeah, I think I would have probably just chosen a different job. I loved the Army in general. I mean, it was the hurry up and wait hua that I was expecting, but my job was very demanding.
Yeah. And that's like I shared. That's the same for me. I would have still joined, but I wish I had joined a different field. So, when you look back at your time, what do you have a favorite memory of
Yeah.
when you served?
I would say all of my time from 2003 to 2005 in Iraq. Gosh, I have so many great, like disposable camera pictures because that's all we had of me just like smiling with an endless desert behind me, like 1,000 camel spiders, right? Or burning oil fields with like Billy Joel uh, quotes written into the HESCO barriers. We were a family. And at the very beginning, I mentioned that I'm a Sicilian American. That family really means something in the Army Infantry. I mean, it didn't matter if I was sleeping with my rifle next to my best friend in a hole, or if I was in a guard tower at 4 a.m. in the middle of Iraq, kicking in doors at 2 a.m. Like, I knew that person would have my back. I missed having that brother, that sister connection because I didn't really get it too much as a kid. So I really missed that time in Iraq, the camaraderie, the high stress and the tensions and the fluid operational security that we had. We were a very impressive unit, and I missed being that high speed.
Mhm. I think. Do you think? Because you have children, right?
I do have one child. I have a stepchild as well.
Okay. Do you think either of them will go into the military?
I sure hope so. I have two options for my children based on my life experiences, and that's one, you go to college, or two, you go into the military. My stepdaughter is brilliant. She'd do wonderful in the Space Force or the Air Force, but she's also very hard headed and stubborn, so she wouldn't do very good in the Army. My son's name is Theseus, named after the Greek king. So I hope he goes somewhere in the armed forces with a name like his. But I think that the military brings so much value. There was so much skill and education and precision that I picked up in the military. I'd say I probably wouldn't do it again, but I am so grateful for the skills and the traits that it impressed into my life for sure.
Sure, sure. Is there anything else that you want to talk about or share?
No, I think that this is a great platform. Sorry I wasn't able to bobble around with your co-host today as well. You guys are wonderful when I watch your episodes, and really, if there's someone who has been affected by justice, if there's people who've been incarcerated or family members who are veterans and who don't know where to start, please do reach out. Please do reach out to me or to the show individually for my contact information. I'd be more than happy to help or assist any type of veteran or military connected families that are going through justice involved issues.
Well, I think that's wonderful, and I really appreciate your time and thank you for your service and your story. Um, and like Thomas said, definitely reach out to us for this episode or any of the episodes. If you need a resource from something that we've shared, I will always connect you as soon as I get the email, which is like the fourth email list that I'm on. So sometimes that can be a day or two. But as soon as I get it, I will get you the contact. And I would just like to thank everybody for your time today. If you like what you see, definitely follow us. And I will be back soon.
Thanks again.